This is Steve Brown Art Center Podcast Network, and this is a story from the River Road. My family was a baseball family, the Bensons from the Iowa-Minnesota border. My uncles, Les, Merle, Harley, and Ed, pushed it toward me and their children. Merle was one of the largest successes. He had a tryout with the Yankees prior to World War II, but like many players of that era, he went to serve in World War II and was injured. So that ended his baseball career. Most recently, a cousin, Blake Mitchell from Houston, Texas, was drafted in the first round, the 8th pick by the Kansas City Royals. And so those of you baseball people out there, make sure you check out Blake Mitchell and see where he is playing in the minor leagues. I believe he was sent to the two-way level right away. As a child in the late 60s, early 70s, I was an Oakland A's fan, and they had such guys as Joe Rudy, Reggie Jackson, Ron Santos, Claudell Washington, and they had an incredible pitching staff. Vida Blue, Kenny Holtzman, Catfish Hunter, Blue Moon Odom, Raleigh Fingers, and Kenny Knowles. Also at this time, I liked the Pittsburgh Pirates in the National League. They had Roberto Clemente, Willie Stargell, and a pitcher that I'm going to talk about by the name of Doc Ellis. In 1971, the Pirates started the first all-black lineup, which was an amazing thing in the early 70s. It was a giant time, actually. Also in 1971 All-Star game, Doc Ellis started against Oakland A's pitcher Vida Blue, the first time that two black pitchers started the All-Star game. Of those two pitchers, although Vida Blue was far and away the more talented of the two, I like Doc Ellis better. Doc had a little bit of an attitude about him. Although he won over 130 games, he'll never be in the Hall of Fame. But early in the 1970 season, he set out to hit all 9 starters of the Cincinnati Reds. That was the Cincinnati Reds that had Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, to name just 3 people. And he started the game by hitting 3 of the 5 of them, and he just barely missed 2 before the manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Danny Murtaugh, took him out of the ball game. June 10th of 1970, the Pirates were on a West Coast swing, and Doc was close to home, so he asked Murtaugh to go home. Murtaugh let him go, and he went on a 2-day bender and thought he woke up the day before he was supposed to pitch. A friend told him that he read in the paper he was to pitch that day. He had slept for 24 hours. He had lost an entire day. So Doc went to the airport and he bought a $9.50 ticket from Oakland to San Diego. $9.50. Oh, how times have changed. He had 5 hours before he was supposed to start, and he got there 90 minutes before the game. Now, there's some question of whether or not this really happened. Murtaugh would have told the reporters. Murtaugh was not shy about attacking his players in front of the reporters. But anyhow, it was a twilight doubleheader, so at 5 o'clock on June 12th, 1970, Doc Ellis took the mound after being drunk for 48 hours. At least that was the story for 20 years. In that game, he walked 8 people and he hit 1. The great Willie Stargell of the Pittsburgh Pirates hit 2 homers, and they won 2-0. But to hear Doc Ellis tell it 20 years later, Richard Nixon, yes, the President of the United States, was the umpire behind the plate that he saw. Jimi Hendrix, the great guitar player, pinch hit in that game with his guitar. Doc talked about how he was pitching on top of a birthday cake, and there were 8 candles behind him. I've got a feeling there were 8 players behind him, is what they were. 20 years later, Doc told the truth. He was high on LSD, but he pitched a no-hitter. The entire game, a rookie second baseman for the Pittsburgh Pirates kept taunting him. His own teammate kept taunting him, "You got a no-no going, Doc. You got a no-no going, Doc." And the older players just wanted to punch him. It is tradition in Major League Baseball. It's tradition in baseball that you don't say anything when a pitcher's got a no-hitter going. You just keep your mouth shut. You don't want to break what's going good. Well, it was going really good, except for Doc didn't know where he was throwing. He could barely see the hitters. Matter of fact, he told a reporter 20 years later that he would throw at the hitters on the left side or at the right side, just so that he would get at them. That's why he walked so many. The great songwriter and singer Todd Snider, if you get a chance, and I know many of you take a deep dive into the internet, if you get a chance, look up Todd Snider's song about the great Doc Ellis no-hitter, and he tells the story probably better than I'm telling it. But at the time, Major League Baseball was battling a giant drug problem. Most clubhouses used a little pill called a greenie. They were Benadryls or speed, is what it was. And I've read that multiple times, not just about Doc Ellis, but by other Major League Baseball guys from that time. The famous second baseman for the Reds, Joe Morgan, talked about that a lot when he was an announcer on ESPN. To Doc's defense, he was never proud of being a drunk or high every game he started in a Major League Baseball game, but he was an addict. He was a drunk. But the year after he got out of baseball, he got clean. He went into a program, and to his credit, he helped multiple addicts, went into prisons and helped addicts in prison. He helped with the Sickle Cell Anemia Foundation. He worked with child abuse people. And if you want to know more about Doc Ellis, there's a great documentary called Documentary, DOCKUMENTARY. Next week, we'll be back to a regular podcast, as this weekend is the Watermelon Day out at Littleton. Dale's gone on assignment today, and I am on my way to receive our first grant. I'll talk about that next week on the podcast as well. Have a great week. Thank you.